Hi, this is Charles from Final Gravity, and this is my playlist for the week of November 17th to November 23rd, 2025. Sorry it's a little delayed. We had the Thanksgiving holiday, I was out of town, but here we are. First album I listened to this last week was Armored Saints Punching the Sky from 2020. Another reliably solid outing with just the faintest dash of growth. This well-mixed production features sneaky but appropriate keyboard textures by former Guns N' Roses ivory tickler Dizzy Reed. Full of bite-sized songs with good hooks, this is heavy metal without any genre qualifications. Maybe even sounds a little closer to what we call hard rock these days. But the Saints still delivers what is expected, and you cannot fault them for that. A good solid record. If you've ever been a fan, you will like this. The next album I listened to was a band called the Cyberiam, their album Connected from 2021. They're a prog quartet from Chicago. These guys play really well, but they keep it out of Dream Theater territory by servicing the song first and foremost. Those songs are tuneful, accessible, and pretty concise while having loads of odd meter and great playing. Rush is clearly a big influence on the rhythm section, what with the gloriously prominent overdriven bass tone and the dexterous everything but the kitchen sink drumming. Especially impressive is drummer Tommy Murray, who compares favorably to luminaries like Peart, Portnoy, and Carey. Bassist Brian Kovacs also deserves praise for his melodic, growling lines, falling somewhere between Squire and Geddy Lee. It can come off a bit twee at times, but overall, it's a worthwhile listen, especially if you like your hard rock and prog mixed. Next, I listened to the Firestarter score from 2022 by John Carpenter, his son Cody Carpenter, and their collaborator Daniel Davies. It is not one of John Carpenter's best scores. There really are no memorable themes or hooks, and there's lots of padding to fill in the background. Lots of swells and drones and just kind of placekeeping stuff. Not at all necessary if you are a Carpenter fan to have this in your collection. Next, on recommendation of a friend whose taste I respect, I listened to Fallujah, their album Xenotaph from 2025. It is progressive black metal with occasional melodic passages. It's a lot to take in, and I'm going to need additional listens before I can give any kind of coherent opinion. But I am interested, I'm intrigued, and I will absolutely give it a few more spins. Next up was Ringen椅子, Future Romanticism from 2009. That is a translated title. It might be Future Romantic or the trend of romantic futurism or an adherent to that trend. It's kind of hard to get the nuances of Japanese in there, especially when you don't speak it. They are a trio from Japan. They're more of a back-to-basics metal band with most of their influences coming from the 70s, specifically a lot of Black Sabbath. So I guess you could call them a doom band or a stoner band, but they're not really part of that subgenre either. The opening track, Sunset, does have some Sabbathisms. There's a song called Shining Will that has a new wave of British heavy metal vibe to it. Romantic Manifesto has a chromatic descending riff that's very reminiscent of Metallica's For Whom the Bell Tolls, and bonus points for having a cool cowbell in there. Red and Black has some Blackmore-isms from the Deep Purple era. In the track Blissful Rock and Roll, there is some self-consciously silly chanting of lock and lol, as if they knew that that would be a joke that Western audiences would make, so they went ahead and made it themselves. It's still pretty funny to hear them say lock and lol, though. A song called Abyss starts with a Randy Rhoads-ish intro, and then there's a riff that's reminiscent of Black Sabbath's Symptom of the Universe. There are some thrash sensibilities in Underground Cafe, double time and double bass, pretty nice. There's a song called Mystery of Autumn Nights that reminded me strangely of Spinal Tap's Gimme Some Money, if you remember that song. There's a bass break ever so slightly like The Who's My Generation in there. The whole thing reminds me of the way Blue Oyster Cult is cheeky and subversive, the way they use standard hard rock and metal tropes to sort of poke fun at the genre, but also write a good song. The last album I listened to this week was also by Ringen椅子, called Mahoroba. It's their brand new 2025 release. The production and the mix are so much better than the previous album from 2009 that I just reviewed. The first track is a title track. It reminds me slightly of 21st Century Schizoid Man in one section. So they've got their trademark chromaticism going in there too. There's a song, Hell's Judgment, that has thick dissonant chords somewhere between Voivod and George Lynch's work in Dokken. A swing time and triplets in much of the record, so it's kind of that heavy, Sabbathy 70s vibe. Cosmic Abduction reminds me of Blue Oyster Cult a little bit, both in the subject matter and the execution. There's a sense of humor in the guitar effects and the vocal effects. There's a weirdly harmonized tandem lick there as well that's really cool. Wild Superior has an 80s Ozzy vibe and a Megadeth riff and a Thin Lizzy Warriors callback. These are what I'm hearing, not necessarily what they were intending. So forgive me if I make it sound like these guys are just ripping off other artists. In Eternal Bell, there's a ballad, again with BOC quirkiness, that has a la 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 section in it that's both melodic and nice and also silly at the same time. Crucible of Emotions also reminds me of early Blue Oyster Cult, specifically Cities on Flame. And Child of Light has an Iron Maiden kind of vibe to it. So you can see, if you're a fan of that Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Blue Oyster Cult, heavy grooving, kind of doomy metal from way back, this is exactly the right band for you. Yes, it's all sung in Japanese, but music is a universal language, right? Anyway, that's all for this week, and I will see y'all next week with my next playlist. And here is T-shirt of the week.